Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about Bad Boys 4, and that is specifically Will Smith's very good. I saw it, 5 out of 5 star movie. I absolutely loved Bad Boys 4. No spoilers for Bad Boys 4 here, and Bad Boys Ride or Die, right? And I wanted to talk about what we learned from the opening box office of Bad Boys 4, right? Well, Grace Randolph covered it. It made $56 million in week 1, right? That is a huge release in 2024, where the release numbers are absolutely catastrophic. There's open discussion that we might be looking at literally the last films that will ever screen on a big screen. Hollywood is in a lot of trouble. They sacrificed a lot to spin up some really junky, crappy streaming services, and we lost one of the best businesses the world had ever seen, which was specifically was the big, the silver screen, right? Like we're losing cinema, we're losing American movies, we're losing, and it's very bad, right? But Bad Boys 4 did phenomenally well, extremely well. And to put that in perspective, in 1 week, in its opening week, Will Smith was able to put up as many dollars as Anna Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth combined, right? $56 million in 1 week for Will Smith, $58 million for 3 weeks for Anna Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. Both their careers, man, that is not good. That is not good for what comes next for either one of them. Just catastrophic numbers, right? But Will Smith comes out. So what does this say? Well, it's a huge statement, okay? It says that a extremely well-crafted, well-written, well-executed project can uncancel a person. You can get yourself out of the doghouse. You can get yourself uncanceled if you come back and you put the project down in exactly the right way, where people are delighted, people really like what you're producing, and you can bring yourself back. And Will Smith is back. He is back as a movie star for the next 3 to 7 years while movies still exist, right? Because I'm telling you, man, it is very, very bad news at the box office this year. I really think we are in the death throes of the silver screen. It's genuine, but it's important to look at the metrics while it dies, right? I think that's very important. We've had this for literally an entire century, and it warrants literally riding the ticking device all the way till it hits ground, right? Dr. Strangelove, right? Yeah, very, very, very unique, right? So let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons. So what does this mean for Dungeons and Dragons? Well, Dungeons and Dragons has some creators who were extremely instrumental in some extremely... So basically, let's put it this way. I'm not even going to say his name, right? Because he's still canceled at this point, right? But there was a gentleman who worked on Dungeons and Dragons, which at the time was 4th edition. And 4th edition, if you don't know the history, people despise that game. There were people from 3rd edition that would not touch 4th edition. 4th edition sundered the community completely, and one man brought it back, right? He was in competition with Monty Cook, and it was going to be, the lead was going to be Monty Cook or him, and Monty Cook actually came on and worked with this gentleman for a little while, and this one man really completely saved Dungeons and Dragons from the debacle that 4th edition was, and brought forward 5th edition. And 5th edition at that time, right, in 2014, one designer built a bridge and brought back just literally low millions of complainers and made them happy, and really got Dungeons & Dragons back on track, right? Then a few years, and he stayed on for a few years. He did a ton of work on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition from 2014. I think he had about another 5 years, maybe 6, right? But then there came a point, and just like Will Smith, he was hard canceled, fell out of the position, and fell out of WotC and Hasbro altogether, right? So what does the Will Smith, Will Smith had the slap, right? And then he brings forward Bad Boys 4, and everybody goes, hey, everything's forgiven, man. You're still throwing down incredibly good art, and you are really, you're needed, right? We're in crisis mode. Now, what's interesting is Will Smith says, that this one man who has been like Moses, he has been made Moses, right? He has very much been put into a Moses position. What do I mean by a Moses position? Moses went through the desert, right? And he got to Canaan, and he was not allowed to come in, and he had to look from the outside in. And there's one man in Dungeons & Dragons, a very prominent designer, who really saved Dungeons & Dragons in the 4th edition era and came to the 5th edition era. And he was straight canceled, right? But if you look at what's happening with Will Smith right now, they're like, all's forgiven. You're fine. Like, come on back in. Everything's fine, right? And that's pretty huge, right? Like, so it means if you have the right project and you get the right momentum, you can uncancel yourself, right? So now I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole whether this man should be uncanceled or not. I'm just saying that right now Hollywood has shown an extremely direct track to the right project can uncancel a person. We didn't know this before, right? This is a big question of, can art uncancel a person? The answer looks like yes, right? So I do think this is going to have an impact on Dungeons & Dragons overall. It points to what is possible. It doesn't point to what is right? This doesn't have anything to do with ethics. This is saying that a commercially viable, extremely well-executed project can make people forget something that happened a while ago and forgive for something that happened a while ago, which is interesting. I'm not saying this is what should happen. I'm saying this could happen because Hollywood has shown what's possible, right? And I do think Hollywood is very closely connected to the Dungeons & Dragons sphere, in that if it happens in Hollywood, it absolutely can happen in the D&D sphere, because D&D is very careful to make sure that its celebrity is pretty modeled directly after Hollywood, in my humble opinion. Quite literally, some of the biggest well-known dungeon masters and dragon masters are coming from Hollywood, like quite literally, right? And so very, very interesting. I think this is interesting to see how this will shape up, how this will go forward. And it's possible that we might see a designer who was very prominent at a time when Dungeons & Dragons really needed saved, stepped up and actually got the job done, then did some stuff that got himself canceled. We may see him back at some point, only because Hollywood is pointing at that could be possible, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.